Have you ever wondered what's truly going on inside you when you masturbate? I'm not just talking about the physical sensations or what's happening in your body, but also what's moving in your mind, in your soul, in the core of your being. Despite the apparent freedom of today's world, masturbation remains a topic rarely openly discussed. It's still shrouded in shame, guilt, and countless prejudices, whether they come from religious beliefs, our upbringing, or distorted self-perceptions around sexuality. The truth is that for many, masturbation causes an internal conflict. But what if I told you that this act, often considered trivial or sinful, actually reveals profound truths about the human subconscious? According to Carl Jung, an explorer of the soul, what matters is not just what people do, but the deeper motives that drive them to act. He believed that every behavior holds symbolic meaning, energy, and a hidden message, and masturbation is no exception. For Jung, masturbation could be a psychological compensation, an unconscious attempt to fill an emotional void or to reconnect with repressed parts of the self. Sometimes it serves as an escape, other times it's a path back to something forgotten. No wonder such a personal and widespread act has so many interpretations. But beware, this wound doesn't necessarily come from dramatic, major traumas. Sometimes it's more subtle things, like parents who are physically present but emotionally absent, a mother always too busy or incapable of true emotional intimacy, a father who gives love only if the child behaves correctly, adults who unpredictably switch from tenderness to total coldness, or even simply the feeling that you have to earn love by doing everything right instead of receiving it naturally just because you exist. The child's brain interprets all of this in one way. If the people who should love me unconditionally can't, then there's something fundamentally wrong with me. This unconscious conclusion becomes a deep belief that will filter all your future romantic experiences. The wounded child doesn't think, and my parents have emotional limitations. They think, I don't deserve to be loved. The magnetic pull of the inaccessible. This wound creates a super complex psychological dynamic. On one hand, you feel an immense hunger for love and validation, but on the other hand, you have a deep terror of real intimacy, because for you, intimacy has always been synonymous with the risk of abandonment. The result is an incredibly magnetic pull. You're drawn like a magnet to people and situations that reproduce this same pattern. You find yourself loving someone who can't or won't return that love completely. The abandonment wound acts like an emotional magnet. Unconsciously, you're attracted to people who recreate the family dynamic you experienced, not because you enjoy suffering, but because your unconscious is trying to heal the trauma by replaying it over and over. It's as if your unconscious is telling you, at this time it will be different. This time I'll manage to make this person love me, and when I do, I'll finally be healed. But Jung understood that this unconscious logic is completely false. The problem isn't whether masturbation is good or bad. It's not a matter of morality. It's a matter of consciousness. Because when an act becomes unconscious, it starts to control you without you being aware. Sometimes we masturbate not out of authentic desire, but out of sadness, stress, anxiety, or loneliness. In such moments, libido becomes a cover for pain, a mask for unhealed wounds. But when you start to recognize what lies beneath that desire, you open the door to transformation. Masturbation can be more than just a release. It can be a bridge, a way to reconnect with yourself. But that only happens when you stop treating libido as shameful and start treating it as sacred, creative, and worthy of respect. Because essentially, libido is what makes your soul vibrate, and if channeled correctly, it can completely transform your life. Jung saw libido as the essence of vitality. So it's time to explore an even more revealing dimension, the shadow. For Jung, the shadow is everything we hide from ourselves: repressed feelings, forbidden desires, childhood wounds. And sexuality is one of the most common places where the shadow lives. From an early age, we are told that certain desires are wrong, ugly, sinful. We are taught to feel shame about our bodies, our curiosity, our impulses, and all of this gets buried in the subconscious. But repressed things don't disappear. They reappear in new, distorted ways. Masturbation done in secret, with guilt or shame, can be a cry from the shadow, a cry that needs to be seen. Have you ever felt that emptiness or guilt afterwards, even when no one judged you? It could be your shadow speaking, both the part that acts and the part that hides. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If we ignore these hidden impulses, they run the show, and we don't even know it. When it comes to masturbation, that means the act is often not about freedom, but about patterns born of repression. But here's the surprise: confronting the shadow doesn't mean fighting it or erasing it. It's about seeing it, understanding it. That desire, fantasy, impulse has a root, and once you find the root, you can choose what to do with it. So the next time that automatic impulse arises, take a break. Ask yourself, is this a real desire, or is my shadow trying to break through? Even asking the question brings awareness, and awareness is the first step towards freedom. Jung knew that the mind is never as simple as we assume. So many of our automatic behaviors are rooted in deeper parts of the psyche, what he called complexes. But don't let the word scare you. A complex is simply a group of feelings, memories, and thoughts formed around a charged, often painful or emotional, experience, and when a complex is triggered, you can feel like you're no longer yourself. You act differently from your character, you think irrationally, you feel things you can't explain. Now think about masturbation. Have you ever felt caught in a loop? You didn't really want to, but you did it anyway. Maybe you were trying to avoid rejection, fear, or loneliness. In that moment, it's not about your conscious self-action. It's a complex, probably rooted in an old wound. It could be your adolescent self, the child who was shamed or neglected. The addiction cycle. Jung also discovered that falling for an inaccessible person creates a neurological cycle almost identical to that of an addiction. Your brain receives tiny, irregular doses of reward. For example, a special look, a sweet message, an unexpected moment of attention. These unpredictable small doses keep your reward system constantly alert. This is exactly the same mechanism that makes gambling so addictive. Because you never know when the next reward will come, you stay hooked. Wounded individuals often become hypervigilant emotionally. They interpret the slightest sign as proof that the other person might be interested. If they said hello to me in a warmer voice today, that's it, they're falling for me. We talked a bit longer than usual. Surely, they're starting to change. This hypervigilance is as exhausting as it is seductive. It makes you believe you're deciphering a secret language no one else understands. It convinces you there's solid evidence to continue investing in this relationship. Jung understood that this dynamic depends not only on the other's behavior, but also on your psychological need to avoid pain. Accepting that someone can't love you would mean reliving the pain of childhood when you realized your parents or attachment figures had limitations. The addiction to intermittent hope also distorts your perception of time. You can spend years waiting and believing things will change soon. Months become years, years become decades, and you remain stuck in a story that never truly materializes. This mechanism also feeds your identity. You become the person who loves deeply, who never gives up on people, or who sees potential no one else sees. These are beautiful qualities, but applied to unreciprocated relationships, they transform into a very sophisticated form of self-deception. Conscious suffering and healing. True healing, for Jung, involved something he called conscious suffering. What does that mean? What does this figure represent? A memory, a lack, a desire? It might seem strange, but these moments of intimacy with the self are when the soul speaks loudest, and when you start to hear it, desire is no longer just physical. It becomes transformative. Now let's go further. What can you do with all this energy? According to Jung, there's a concept called sublimation, and it's not about suppressing desire, but about transforming it. It's the process of redirecting raw sexual, emotional energy into something meaningful: creativity, art, love, vision. That intense energy you feel, the fire in your body, doesn't have to be discharged through habit. It can become fuel for something greater: music, writing, cooking, dancing, anything that awakens your spirit. The problem is that we've only been taught two things: repression or release. But both extremes can harm the soul. Sublimation is the middle path. It's transformation. Jung said, a psychic energy must flow. If you stop it, it rots. If you waste it, it turns against you. But if you channel it, it heals. So ask yourself, is this energy being wasted, or can I use it for something deeper? Masturbation doesn't have to stop, but perhaps it needs to stop being your only way to release. Let it be a thread in a larger tapestry where pleasure is more than physical, where it connects your body to your soul. Jung said that we live through symbols, not just instincts. When you understand your desire, you start to choose. You move from habit to meaning. After you've masturbated, have you ever felt empty, restless, guilty? That post-orgasm silence, that strange boredom, could be the soul trying to speak. Maybe you weren't just seeking release, but connection, to feel supported, to feel seen, even by yourself. And pleasure without presence never truly fills. It only flickers. The same question always comes back: what do I truly long for? Asterisk intensity equals deep love. One of the biggest distortions for wounded people is believing that the more intense it is, the more true love it is. If your relationship is calm, stable, without drama, your brain whispers, this isn't love, it's boring. If you grew up in an emotionally unstable environment where love always came with crises, anxiety, and ups and downs, you learn that love hurts, and so as an adult, you unconsciously seek stories that make you suffer, because for you, suffering is proof that it's serious. Asterisk need equals love. Another huge distortion is confusing emotional need with love. When you have an abandonment wound, you feel an enormous hunger for love. So as soon as you feel an intense need for someone, you think, it must be because I love them. You tell yourself, or I can't live W3 without them. When in reality, it might not be love. It's simply your wound screaming for attention and security. Suffering equals proof of love. Jung noticed that many wounded people develop a deep belief, true love must hurt. They think that if it's easy, it's superficial, and that you must fight to prove you truly love someone. But this is a huge mistake. True love doesn't need to be a war or a tragedy. Available people are suspect. Another distortion is believing that people who show sincere and stable interest are strange or uninteresting. You think, why are they so interested in me? There must be something wrong with them. Because you're so used to believing that love must be complicated that simplicity scares you. Love must be unilateral. There's also this idea that true love is when you give without expecting anything in return. You think that asking for reciprocity is selfish. As a result, you get stuck in unbalanced relationships, sometimes for years. Fear of conflict. If you grew up in an environment where the slightest conflict meant rejection or abandonment, you develop a huge fear of arguments.